Oh God, 3 freaking videos because I keep running off at the mouth. Hopefully this will be the last one, okay? Ultimately, the biggest obstacle for any of these government systems to work are humans. Humans suck. That should be my theme. I should like put a banner on that on my channel. Humans suck. They're the ultimate problem. They're the reason why no matter how good a system you come up with, something's going to go wrong. Because you're dealing with humans. They suck. Take any system of government. The person who came up with that system of government and back at the time originally thought that it was a great thing. Would work. Everybody would be happy. Take a monarchy. Well, a monarchy, if you deal with a benevolent king, things, I mean, he'd be a wise, strong ruler, benevolent person. Or we can go with the philosopher kings that, you know, they came up with. I believe it was Plato came up with that, the idea of the philosopher king. People who did not want to rule, but you put them up there, and then they're able to rule wisely and justly and come up with the right decisions, and they rule benevolently, and they wouldn't fleece the people and all that. And did we end up with that? No. You end up with all the power-hungry maniacs being king, and then, of course, then later on, monarchies suck! We need something better! We need to fight for the people! We need something more like a democracy sort of thing! With a democracy, the people will get to choose and decide, because they're intelligent enough to make their own decisions and, you know, see what's wrong with the systems, and they're like, they know what their problems are on the ground level, and then when they cast their vote, they'll intelligently say what the problem is, and then everyone will come together and solve it, and then, yeah, that doesn't work. You can't even get that working in a family situation, because everybody's got their own different point of view, and to make matters even worse, you sometimes have motherfuckers who don't know what the hell the issue is, but they want to talk about it anyway. And then later on, see, democracies don't work. What you need is a dictatorship. Not necessarily a king sort of thing, but and so on and so forth. Until finally, fuck systems. Destroy those systems. We need a fucking anarchy. Fuck government. And I'll admit, I'm in that camp. But that's because I don't like authority. But even that could go wrong, because once again, you're dealing with humans. And once again, the king problem is that you're working off the premise that your ruler is going to be benevolent and wise. The democracy problem is that you're working with a group of people, you're working off the premise that the people who are going to be willing to vote will be intelligent and care about the government that they're in. And oligarchy is working off, well, you know, there's too many people for a democracy, but we'll have representatives who will honestly represent what the people want. We're living the example of that right now. We see that ain't working. The problem is humans. No matter how you try to dress up your system to make it look good, there's going to be a bunch of fucking human beings who will always look at this and go, how can I make this work for me? How can I make this work for me? How can I make this work for me? They don't give two shits about the people that they're living with. And it's part of, I'm not going to say that is a direct part of human behavior, but it is sort of hardwired in us. Our ability to survive. The survival traits. Looking out for number one is the first thing. Then it's looking out for other people. And you have to admit, you have to make sure that you're able to work and make sure that number one is doing well before you can worry about number two and number three and number four. But with some people, doing for number one is on overdrive. And they'll always try to find a way to fleece the system. Of course, there are examples of this that, you know, I'm working off of a Western perspective, and with Western culture that is always the case, but that's because Western culture, we've always been raised to mostly look out for number one. But if you look in places like, for example, the Amazon jungles where you're dealing with these type of tribalistic people, they don't live that way. They've been raised to be more community-based. So to only be working just for themselves, it's like, huh? What? That makes no sense. Well, let's take a more modern equivalent. Look at Japan. Many people keep talking about the low crime rate and, you know, the kind of peaceful tendencies that people have over there. Of course, forgetting about what was going on during World War II, or the samurai era. But I noticed that many times when I'm dealing with people who are against gun ownership, they say, well, look at Japan. Low crime rate, low killings, all that. But they forget the cultural aspect. Part of the reason why there's a low crime rate is because it's a cultural thing not to bring shame upon you or your family. So if you got that bred into you, where you worry more about, am I going to bring shame upon my house? Then they might think twice about doing something that might be considered reprehensible by the people. You don't necessarily have that in this country, so it's a foreign concept. But it's just the little things like that, those little variables that can make or break the system. And of course, all those variables come from humans, because it's humans who come up with these value systems in the first place. So once again, we're working off the value system of people looking out mostly for number one. And in America, we got plenty of different systems, like capitalism, for instance, or certain sects of Christianity, which even though they talk about, they talk about mercy and they talk about being good to the poor, but they don't live it. They really worry more about looking out for number one. Mormonism is a good example. If you look at some of the tenets in there, they believe that the richer you are, this is actually true. They consider that the richer you are, the more profitable you are in life, the more you're blessed by God. So that right there is an incentive to be a cutthroat motherfucker. And that's their value system. I don't necessarily know if this is part of the Baptist religion, but I noticed that a lot of the white Baptists around here, they got that same type of philosophy. You know, they worry more about number one. The charity thing is just a side thing so that they look good. But when you deal with them one-on-one in person, you get to see that.
It's like a sword fight. You must think first.
I really hate my computer. God, I hate it. It just will not record right. Okay, I'm sure you got the gist of what I was trying to say before the camera messed up. That basically, you know, the Baptists, they act one way and then you see their character and they do another. Okay. So as far as human beings effing things up, I'm sure an anarchist would come back and say that, well, yeah, true, human beings are an unpredictable factor and they're going to try to F things up somehow. But since anarchy is based off a decentralized system, i.e. not one person holding power, whatever damage it could do would be localized. And even then, you don't have to support it. Like, let's say you're dealing with a corrupt corporation or corrupt police force that you happen to be picking for that city or whatever. All you have to do is stop supporting them and they supposedly would, you know, disappear. But you forget the tenacity of human beings. They will find a way to keep their corruption going. That's why we have crime rings. You know, that's why businesses find ways of being corrupt through the state. Without the state, they will just simply try to find ways of collecting all the guns for themselves and enforcing their will, which doesn't work in the long run, but it would still cause problems. And basically, just lost my train of thought. Basically, okay, let's use the example. Sidewinder Anarchist came up with a really good example about how, let's say, China was invading. They wouldn't be able to do much because, okay, they move into one city, but everybody knows they're invading, so they'll leave and then they end up going to an empty city with absolutely nothing to take over, and they're surrounded by all these other cities who are going to, you know, be pissed off at them, and they all got guns. It's like, oh man, China fucked up. Good example, but okay, if you're dealing with cities, that means right then and there you're dealing with a centralized system. I mean, it's not a completely centralized because they're not all banded together under one umbrella, but they still are centralized, and one of those cities can get into their heads, hey, we can take over the others, and then if they succeed, we're right back to where we started. Even if they didn't, it's still a problem. And ultimately, the fact that you banded up in cities points to something that I see is a key thing that anarchy has to work with. Again, there's the way you want things to be, and then there's the way things are. Human beings are social animals. We like to band together under one umbrella. Anarchy is a system that's based off of one's individuality, respecting the individual's wishes and their own value to contribute to things. And the open market system should be the only thing that unites them, so that you don't have one idea controlling everyone. That's all fine and good, but you forget that the reason why people band together in the first place is because we are social animals. And again, it's that whole people don't want freedom crap. Somebody comes up with an idea and everybody bands together on the idea, and then they say he should be the leader, and then he gets a big head, and then we're right back to where we started. So you have to try to deal with that aspect. Dealing with the fact that social animals are going to try to band together. Again, fucking humans finding ways of ruining things. I'm not saying banding together is a bad idea, because honestly, I do believe that we need to find a balance between wanting to be an individual and yet, you know, respecting that individual's freedom, and yet at the same time working together in a common goal. You can't toss aside one or the other. too many systems, they toss aside the individual, and that's why the individuals are pissed. But then you got the other aspect, tossing away the fact of us wanting to band together. There's problems with both, and we got to try to find a way to get a balance between the two. Yeah, I can go further with this, but damn it, I promised this would be the last video, and that's going to be the last video I do on this unless I get a good comment. I'm sure you guys can probably find a few flaws with what I said. I was in rant mode, so go ahead and, sure, I would love to hear your comments and your own thoughts on this.